was not allowed to have property for the first 30 days. My job at the law center is I'm the prison rights coordinator. I get 300 letters roughly a week from prisoners in Illinois. We've got women being transferred from Logan Correctional Center to Decatur because they made an accusation about rape. The officers kept at Logan and investigated, but the woman is transferred and put in segregation solitary confinement. There's also the thing with the visits.
So those are current cases you're talking
Current
about?
cases, yes. This is going on right now today.
I'm not questioning you, I'm just getting it on the record that there's a distinction.
Yes. Currently, right now, if an inmate gets a disciplinary report, they take the visits. They give them no contact visits and limit the time to 1 hour. If you drive from Chicago to Menard Correctional Center, you will get 1 hour visit behind steel glass. When the visit arrives, it takes roughly 20 minutes for the correctional officer to search him, chain him up, and bring him up to the visiting room. So all of that takes away from the visiting time. In Tams, if our visit was late, our visit was canceled. You don't get telephone privileges in solitary confinement. We got no TV privileges in solitary confinement. And they could change the name from...
You know, I'm hearing of many of these harmful effects that happen to people, and it's usually against federal law. It's against the federal law. So we might, and as the chairperson, maybe we need to look at the federal government to investigate this location, to do a thorough investigation by the federal government of what happens in this place. Because many things that are being done are violation acts. They're violation behavior.
And one of them would be called Ross versus Gossett, where tactical officers came to the Department of Corrections in southern Illinois and did Abu Ghraib tactics. The inmates in Menard are stripped naked, putting pants, shirt, shoes, shackled, hand and foot, marched to the chapel, and forced to stand 4 to 8 hours with their forehead against the wall, handcuffed behind the back. Several of these men have raised an allegation of being physically raped with a baton. And this is all on the record. The Department of Corrections calls this policy nut to butt.
So I think the committee can start with a resolution requesting the federal government to do a thorough investigation of events at Illinois Department of Corrections. It's been going on for too many years. I've been for a long time. Too many years that these things have been occurring. And it's just so unfair. The judge has already assigned how many days, how many years you get. And it doesn't go with criminal, to harming a person who's already there. They're already being taken away from their private behavior at home. So then to come in and now we're going to give you some more, what do we call them? Make sure that other things that are harmful to the person who sit there, and many of these things are they're violations. So I would suggest that, Mr. Chairman.
And you know what you're saying? I got out 5 years ago. I'm not out. I got to see a psychiatrist every week because I was in a box that small by myself for 23 years. Not because I stabbed an officer. That's asking me no. I didn't stab nobody. And 23 years like that, when I was 14 years old until I'm 46. And I'm out here now. What do we want? It would cost $30,000 a year if I get on SSI. Then I get free medical in the state. I'd be averted to the state. I had no mental problems when I went to prison. By the time I got out of TAMS, I was on 5 different types of psychotropic medication. I see a forensic psychiatrist every week. I see a psychologist every week. And I'm terrified out here. And what you're saying is, my time might have been up. It is not getting any better for me at all.
So you go through before a psychiatrist every week? Was that to make sure he was getting paid well?
This was not getting paid at all. She's trying to help me find me.
Outside.
Outside. No, this is since I've been home.
Okay, this is since
and
been out.
I'm older outside. Okay.
Yeah, and sadly, my
Coping mechanism since getting out.
my parole officer took me. I had to have a reintegration evaluation when I was released from prison. If I didn't pass this, they were going to civilly commit me for the rest of my life because they were afraid how I was going to act after being in that box for 23 years. And that's all my parole papers. You locked me up like this, and now you're afraid that I'm going to lose my brain and you're going to lock me up forever. And my mom couldn't believe this. My parole officer took me to 5 doctors none of them knew what to do. None of them. And I'm luckily, one doctor finally says, you need to see this. And it's 6 years now. And I'm still this, and I'm still not out that box. You know, and I'm the one in the gray box. You know, there's kids, 17 years old, being stuck in these boxes forever. What I learned recently is, what did my mother go through watching me do this? My mother watched me go down from 170 pounds to 110. I died on a table with TAMPs because I gave up. There was no vitals, no nothing, and they jacked me full of needles and brought me back. And you can't live like that and come out here and I'm a person. Animals in the zoo don't need to be treated that bad, you know. And I got no due process rights. I was never told why I was there, and I went from there out here, just like that, you know. And there needs to be changes, you know. There needs to be some programs.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you wanna, is there?
Thank you.
I know this was very hard for you. Thank you.
Ms. Schultz.
Ms. Schultz?
My name is Leanne Schultz. This is my husband. He's a human being. And he was interstate transfer. And he was put in administrative detention for no reason because he's interstate transfer. And he was put in TAMs. He was never violent here. Never. He hasn't had any tickets, anything, but he was put in TAMs and has spent 8 years in administrative detention solitary.
Where is he now that TAMS is closed?
He just got transferred from Pontiac to Stateville. He just got out of solitary, which was supposed to be a wonderful, joyous thing because we fought 8 years for it, and it's a nightmare. Because, well, let me say this too. I care about what happens to the officers and the officers' families, but what nobody's saying here is, if you put these people in boxes and treat them like animals, what do you think is going to happen to them? They are going to go get aggressive, they're going to get mentally ill, and they're going to attack people. That is what's going to happen. I've seen my husband mentally deteriorate. I have to buy him shoes every other month because he paces so much. When he got out of TAMS, he was green. He's Mexican. He was green from the lack of sunlight. He was skin and bones. He had black circles under his eyes. 2 months in Pontiac, he gained 65 pounds. Which is supposed to also be a great thing, but he's still in solitary. I decided to keep his mind busy and have him journal and do art. I now have 40 20-gallon tubs of his journaling that says the same thing every day, unless I visited or he had something different to eat. But it's the same thing, four 20-gallon tubs every day. And you can't expect these men to not be mentally ill, not act out on these officers, not get out and do bad things again when they're being treated like animals. You just can't. We went to visit, sorry.
No, you're doing great.
We went to visit him, my daughter and I, on Monday. It was her first time seeing him in general population. And I can tell you, I was afraid, because I've always done solitary visits. I was afraid to go to general population visits because I didn't want to have it taken away from me because they keep threatening to send him back to top solitary. They put him there for no reason so they can send him back again. So I finally went, and my daughter went, and she got to see her dad for the first time without glass. And what really struck us both was it'd been so long that there wasn't glass between us. I didn't even know his voice. I only knew his voice through the phone. And hearing his voice face to face, it was a different voice. It wasn't my husband's voice. And we sat there and we were talking about tattoos and stuff because my daughter's 21, that's what they do. And he reached out and told her no tattoos from here up, and he touched her. And she freaked out. No, Dad, no, they're gonna send you to solitary. And she's like, oh, scared. We couldn't even enjoy the visit because we're scared all the time he's gonna get sent back because you don't need a real reason to get sent there.
Thank you very much.
You know, that is major, what she just said. You don't need a real reason to get sent there. That's why we're here today. Please, Chair.
Is there another witness?
Geraldine.
Make sure you state your name for the record, please.
I'm Geraldine Smith. Unfortunately, have the same stories that they're telling you. My story is a little bit different. I'm the first woman that the state sentenced to death since the reinstatement of the death penalty. But the inhumane part of that was they didn't even have a death row for women. So they put together this old burned out cell, and that's where they cast me. With no rules, no guidelines. And I suffered for years at the whim of what every officer may have thought. Every judgment that they had. I remember asking an officer for a styrofoam cup so I could drink water out of it. Because the sink, when you turn the water on, you could see the rust coming out of it. She told me she couldn't do that. She couldn't give me a cup to drink out of because it wasn't written in the rules. And there was no rules for a woman on death row in this state. The area that they cast me in this old burnout cell was called my cement coffin. I was called the dead woman walking. I was called the condemned woman, where every plate of food that they served me had condemned on the process. So even if I wasn't cognizant of where I was at the time, they wrote it on my food to say, you're condemned. I served 19 years in prison. I'm out of prison, been out for a little while. But my heart beats for what I could see that was going on inside of those prison walls. I held myself and my mind together because I knew who I was. And I knew that no label could make me anything else. But everybody wasn't as fortunate as that. When they used to bring the coalition of state representatives and senators to the Dwight Correctional Center, they didn't want to see them to meet or to see the woman behind the walls, where no human being was able to touch me or be around me or conversate with me unless I talked through the cement wall through a hole. They would take me out of the institution, hide me in their patrol car in the graveyard that's behind the Dwight Correctional Center. I used to sit over there with the lieutenant and an officer inside of the graveyard. And there was one time that I made a phone call because I knew the state representatives and different women was coming down. And I made a phone call to my attorney, and they had me situated in the visiting room so that when the coalition came through, I got a chance to talk to different ones. I got a chance to know who State Representative Mary Flower and the Honorable Moby Davis and different one was. They saw the condition of me being shackled every day. Yet I was the only woman behind that wall in that cement coffin. Do my heart bleed? Yes, it does. Because I had an 8-month-old baby when they arrested me. That 8-month-old baby is a lawyer now. But guess what? I see about children out here now. Last year I serviced 4,100 children, babies up to 18 years old. This year I serviced 3,600. Everybody that is labeled a convict, prisoner, or whatever, you can't make them one. I'm out here doing what I'm supposed to do, but I suffered inhumanely because I had to wait on the courts to make a decision. And all the time, I was the same woman then that I am now. And I plead with this committee to understand that everybody don't have the same mental status. Everybody can't endure the same thing. And I watch women and talk to women. I go back into the prisons and I see about them. Because all of them wasn't raised the same way. Some of them have been beaten and battered and born, just hurt. and they're not able to stand. So today I stand before this committee and say, there's definitely changes. And I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hunt. Does anyone else? Oh, go ahead.
Mrs. Smith, I think you were quite a well-known, grounded person. A lot of people knew of you, right?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to talk to you later, because I remember that case. It was a very long time, and you did have a lot of strength, and it received a lot of press about it. Well, thank all of you for coming. Thank you.
My name is Gregory Koger. I'm here to demand that the state of Illinois stop torturing people in prison. I spent over 6 years straight in solitary confinement in Pontiac Correctional Center. I was incarcerated when I was 17 years old. I went to trial from solitary confinement and the adult county jail. The United Nations has categorically stated that solitary confinement in excess of 15 days constitutes torture. As we've seen, we have been there many more days than 15 days. And there is no justification from the Illinois Department of Corrections to state that people should be held for longer than 15 days in solitary confinement for security purposes. Torture is a crime. There is no excuse for that for security purposes or any other reason. You know, I still wake up at night and expect to wake up and be in a cell. I grew up in prison. I grew up in cells, you know? And I know people who have mutilated themselves because of losing their rational cognitive faculties in these cells that are being operated by this government, the government of the state of Illinois. And, you know, it has to stop. It has to stop.
Thank you. Are there any other witnesses that want to share? Thank you for sharing your stories.
Yeah, one more, Monica.
One more? Okay. If we could try to keep it brief, I know there's some questions.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Monica Cosby. I was locked up for 20 years. I started in Cook County Jail. I went to Dwight, I went to Lincoln, and then we all landed in Logan. I have not been to solitary confinement since like 2004, 2005. But during the time that I was in Dwight, I was there for quite a while. It's very easy to go to solitary for like the pettiest of reasons. You can go for having a piece of candy or having lip balm, in my case, in my pocket. I'm a mass movement. I had lip balm and I went to solitary confinement. I've been in solitary confinement, and you know, women have maybe some different needs than men. Among them are, we need sanitary napkins, we have menstrual cycles. So I've been in solitary in need of sanitary napkins and could not get them, and was told by one staff to just squeeze my leg shut and hold it in. I had another correctional officer tell me to just sit on the toilet and let it flow. And I've actually had to do that because I couldn't have pads, or more than one pad at a time. Oftentimes in women's prisons, women go to solitary because they say no to the advance of a correctional officer, and it's never that CO that sends you to say, it's the guys that the CO hangs out with at work, or after work, or whatever.
You know, that's why Monique Davis, Representative Davis' recommendation to have a federal investigation is very important and should be really considered.
Thank you. What happens to people while they're in solitary, and what happens when, like some women, you wind up going to solitary for what should be 15 days or 30 days, but then you're sitting in your bed where the CO cannot see your face, so that's another ticket, that's another IDR, and so that's another 30 days. So what should be 15 or 30 days to begin with turns into 2 years or 3 years. Or what will happen is you'll go to solitary for 30 days and you'll get out for 2 and then go back and then get out for 3 and then go back, and this can happen 4 years. And how it affects you is that every time you see a CO, every time you hear a certain noise, you're flinching because you think they're coming to get you. And it still happens to you out here because it still happens to me. And I've only been out of prison for 4 months now, but I haven't been in solitary confinement since 2004, 2005, and I still am waiting for someone to come at me and take me back for any little thing.
Thank you.
There's so much to say. If you have any questions, I'm glad to answer them. Otherwise, I'm done.
Thank you very much. I think the department would like to respond.
Is this in closing or?
No.
No, I thought you wanted to respond.
I'd like to respond at the end.
Okay, thank you. I would like to know if there is a departmental policy about sanitary products, so.
They will report it any item that is needed. If any, I know that these are stories that represent a rogue officer. Every agency, every group of people has bad weeds. If those are true cases, they would never be tolerated. Policies on making sure that there's adequate toiletries. If someone's been, I can't speak to specifics, but I can tell you there are policies that cover that.
I understand.
So while you're out there, I have a few questions that I would like to ask. It could be yes or no, or you could answer it however you want. So the question is, an inmate or detainee shall not be placed in isolated confinement if there is no reasonable cause to believe that the person would create a substantial risk of immediate serious harm to himself, herself, or others, and a least restrictive intervention would be enough to protect everyone.
That's taken directly from the bill, correctly? Correct?
It is. Would you agree with that portion of the bill?
In premise, yes. There's already a departmental rule that allows for progressive discipline and only acting with minimal need or minimal reaction as to the circumstance.
All right.
I want to go ahead and let Mr. Lane respond, and then I'd like to get clarity. I'm sorry, somebody's pointing at somebody. Do you? Okay. State your name for the record, and please make sure that everyone that has testified actually submits a witness slip, if you could, please, Mr. Nelson.
Hello, I'm Raina Wallace, W-A-L-L-A-C-E. I'm a licensed dental assistant and an activist. I recently just got out of jail, December 3rd. I was taken in because of police brutality, ethnicity, and the capitalized system, as well as my skin color. I'm on 71st and Jeffrey, and I was passing out literature and exercising my First Amendment, which is freedom of speech. And I got chased from 71st and Jeffrey all the way to 71st and Constance. You had a block on this side, stays on this side, and if I kept running, I would have got hit with one of them. I got taken in. I was in there for 2 months. I was in there. I was in solitary confinement.
You were in IDOC or Cook County?
I was in Cook County,
Okay.
Cook County jail. I was in there the whole time. The whole time I was in there for 2 months, I was in there in solitary confinement. Since I've been out, I've lost my job and apartment. And since I've been out, it's been hard for me to be able just to live in the society that I am. I feel like there's some change that need to be, some laws that need to be, changed within just Cook County. I was in a condemned building which is infested with black mold that can kill the inmates and the COs. I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous. Yeah, there was big bugs. There were 3 people to a cell when I was in there. We were not able to come out on our usual times that we were supposed to come out. I just want something to be changed within the system. There are people that are, losing, their lives, and we can't come back. They're making it harder for us to, just get back on our feet. I don't have a place to stay right now. I lost my job. This needs to change. Something needs to happen.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair, more questions for the department. So what about a comprehensive medical and mental health examination backup? Do you think people should be placed in these solitary confinements knowing that they have a condition? What happens if a person is placed in and the reason why they acted out, maybe there was a health condition, and you put someone in a condition like solitary confinement have a health condition as well? Couldn't that put that person at risk and the state at risk for?
So that's part of the due process. They aren't just placed in segregation immediately. If there is a serious enough offense, they could be placed in
So
temporary.
you're saying that there could never be an instance where a person is immediately placed in
Yes,
segregation?
there are cases where that could happen, yes.
Do you think that's good and safe for state and the individual? I mean, couldn't they
Well, that's
put
the
the
purpose
state at
of,
risk?
that's the purpose of placing them in temporary confinement. If they commit a serious enough offense, that the actual language in the DR, the departmental rules, speak of preservation of the safety and security of the facility, they're in temporary confinement, pending the due process or the hearing or the offense.
Is there a difference between confinement and solitary confinement?
It's confinement, yeah. It's temporary confinement is just that. It's temporary, and it's in an area. It could be in.
Is that possible?
It could be in a cell. Yes, it is. Yes. That's a,
And do you think that's right, is my question. Do you think that's right?
which is right. If there
The
is some,
immediate
if there.
person being placed in that type of environment without a real evaluation of their condition.
There are many cells that are 130-year-old prisons, I'm afraid, and I can't speak to the size of those cells. We have to build the large cells and large prisons.
Between a cell, a solitary confinement cell, and a cell that's just a regular cell that's not.
There are some cells at the maximum security facilities that are larger than that, general population cells. There are some that are the same size that are general population.
But the environment is different, right?
It's just it's the reduced is really what the significance difference is there. That's part of the deterrent effect of segregation, is that if you go to segregation for an infraction, you're not going to get to go to a big yard. You'll get to go to a small yard. Or you won't get to have as much personal property in your cell as you normally. It's the privilege restrictions that's meant to be the deterrent effect.
I think what I'm hearing here, and Representative Ford, indulge me for a second. What's very clear is the department would like to do this by rule, and that there's not a lot of faith on the part of the constituency and many of the members that rule is sufficient. I hear what you're saying, that you've made significant changes since this director's been in place, but he hasn't been here long. We don't know how long he's going to be here. So I do think that there is some legitimacy to the desire to enact, to put some of this in statute. What I'd like to get on the record, if I could, Representative Ford, is what your plan is for this bill in terms of, you said you want to continue to work on it, but if we move it out on the floor today.
I want to ask a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me ask you about vulnerable populations. What does that mean? Do you take that into consideration?
We have vulnerable and predator classifications currently for offenders that are by gender, by sexual preference, by lack of sophistication, things like that, and they are clinically classified as a vulnerable. They are placed with other offenders. Same way with if someone has a predatory background.
Is there a population of this vulnerable group that you find to be isolated more than others?
I think so. I don't know exactly what.
You don't pay attention to it, then?
It's not true, sir.
Well, is it possible to be able to tell me if gays and transgenders are probably isolated more than others?
No.
It's not possible.
It's not, I mean, if it happens, it's by pure happenstance. There's no, if you're implying that there's some nefarious
I'm not
desire.
asking a question.
Well, what I'd like to say is that there is no bias in placing anyone in disciplinary segregation based on a classification such as the vulnerable
So you
classifications you
stand
mentioned.
here today in full support of everyone that's been placed into these confinements, saying that your staff or the staff that places people in these environments are doing the best job that they can do, and that they have not made any misjudgments.
There's always room for misjudgments. There's no one agency, one institution, one person that's perfect, and if there are mistakes made, they should be caught.
And so how do we do that as to work together? That's what we're here for. And I want to say that I know that Representative Sandek is one of the Republicans that truly wants to see change. And he will work with us on these things. And I hope that he hears what people are saying today. And I hope that, I know you here, and I hope that you're really ready to help us work with the department to do something.
Excuse me, sir. LaShawn, you have my continuing commitment on that. And what I was hoping, Vice Chair Cassidy was suggesting, and maybe she is, and she can certainly speak for herself, the process you have started is entirely appropriate and entirely justified. Moving ahead with the bill while there are rules that have yet to be introduced and vetted, and heard the last time is I thought I heard Mr. Lane talk about it, was a critical path for operative investigation, hearings, and process. Jamming with this time, I think, is a mistake. I think it's a mistake.
Let me tell you what I think.